it's me, Lemoni. Happy Wednesday. Unfortunately, we won't be doing Wacky Wednesday. I have COVID. My girlfriend has COVID, so we're a little under the weather. I tried doing some build testing, wasted like 20k gold yesterday. Really, nothing really worked out. So we'll be doing that at a different time. But I figured today we could cover a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart, that being healing in New World. Now, everybody knows that healing is not a very inviting, it is a rather intimidating role in New World, simply because of like the clunkiness, because of scroll wheel targeting. In general, healing feels a little weird, a little awkward sometimes. I still love it and I'm still going to keep doing it. It's my main role. But I figured we could make a video today kind of suggesting some of the changes I think that would be fantastic for healing to make it more inviting for newer players, or inviting for, old healers who didn't want to pick up healing in New World because they didn't like the way it felt. It's a hard system to change, and yes, there are a lot of things I'm going to suggest, but I don't want anybody to take this as a oh, I hate healing video, it's awful. It's just a video to offer some constructive feedback, some positivity, and just some thoughts on how we can better the healing role in New World. So before we get into the video, I just want to say, if you want to connect with me, feel free to leave a comment or respond. Join us in Discord, over probably like 1,500 people at this point. You can DM me at any point, send me a DM, I'll respond to whatever questions you have. If you're interested in joining the company on Eden, either DM me in game or DM me in Discord. We're getting more and more people, we're getting tons of 60s, we're getting there. We really are. Next, follow our Twitter. We are doing a giveaway on Twitter. If you're interested, you'll have to retweet that tweet and follow me there. Next, follow the TikTok if you would like. We'll be doing some Twitch highlights, some other things, just little clips of extra info. And then lastly, if you want to follow me on Twitch, I'll be live between 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Central Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We go for about 5 hours. As always, I appreciate all the support you give me. I cannot be doing any of this without all of you. So if you would please keep doing that weird YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, I'd really appreciate it. Now, with this video, where do I think healing is right now in New World? It's in an interesting spot, and we've been getting a lot of nerfs, a lot of changes to healing in general just throughout the patches, but I still think we're in a good spot. I think healing's fun. I think it's one of the most engaging roles in New World, and I think there's a hefty skill gap, but I don't know if that skill gap really resides where it needs to be. It's more so on how is your maintenance of clunkiness with the scroll wheel target, and how is your aiming ability. It's still there, and there are some things that really do, separate the top healers from the bottom healers. But I think there's some things we can do to make it more fluid, make it more enjoyable, and offer more options so that everybody can excel in that role. So there's a bunch of stuff I'm going to cover, but first thing I want to cover is the life staff skill tree. So let's get into it. All right, so this is the healing tree in New World for the life staff. And now where do I see a problem? Well, for starters, I'm just going to say, if you've looked at any of my other videos, it typically looks something like this. Let me show you. Something like that. Every single video. Oh, sorry, one more. Every single video is like that. 15 of our points are accounted for in general. That leaves us 4 open, where I either go into Beacon, go into Orb, and then take some other random abilities to kind of fill it out. Now, I think that's what the problem is. I think right now, with the way the passives are, and the way that the meta is, and the way that the abilities are balanced, that this is the healing build, and if you don't take it, or some combination of this, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. Yes, you can do it. You can do the non-targeted healing build. You can do whatever. But right now, this is it. Every single top tier healer, whether it's PVE or PvP, will be taking something like this. Maybe they don't always take Light's Embrace because they don't love it, but at least as far as passives go, this is what it's like. Now let's talk about passives a little bit. My first one that I want to talk about is one, Mending Touch. Mending Touch is a great one. I love it for PvE, love it for PvP to remove debuffs, but it is incredibly difficult to actually use. Why is that? I just think for some reason hitting a heavy attack on a target is much different than hitting them with a Blissful Touch. I don't know why, it just doesn't feel as good, it feels a little weird. And so what I would suggest for Mending Touch is put a 10-second cooldown on it, but give us old Mending Touch. Let us have an AoE circle that removes debuffs, but put some kind of cooldown on it so that we can actually make use out of it. Because right now, as is, we pretty much have to take this because Enchanted Justice is just so bad, and at least I prefer to be able to take off 1 debuff. If you're going to leave it like this, maybe make it more debuffs, maybe not just 1. It does not do a lot in the current meta, the current state of things, and I think it needs some work to really be fine-tuned. But again, we're kind of pigeonholed into this take Mending Touch because these abilities aren't very good. And the passive that's left to get us to the end isn't very good either. So Mending Touch, I think, needs some work. Next, Enchanted Justice. This is one I've been talking about for a while. Having a 6-second, 8% weapon damage per second, yes, it scales with focus, heal in a 4-meter radius that you can't even really see is not good. Why? Because it's on a 120-second cooldown, right? I can basically Blissful Touch like 2 people, and it's going to be somewhat equivalent. Like, it does not equate. Like, if you think about it in this context, it's 48% of your total weapon damage. Like, you shoot off 1 Blissful Touch and hit it through 3 people. That's going to do like the full healing of Enchanted Justice. And that's on a 120-second cooldown. If you're going to keep this ability in the game, it needs to be reduced, like 30-second cooldown or something like that. But 120 seconds is absurd. If you're going to make it 120 seconds, it needs to be more healing. Like, top end with all scaling, it's probably somewhere around like, I don't know, 3K. I really don't know the numbers. I'd have to get deeper into it, but I think this is one of the worst healing abilities in the game possible. I really don't understand why the cooldown is that long. It doesn't make that much of an impact. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. So personally, I feel like Enchanted Justice really needs a rework. It either needs to be removed, the cooldown needs to be lowered, or if they're going to keep that cooldown, the healing it does needs to be increased. So that's just my personal thoughts and feelings on it. Next, ability-wise, Divine Embrace. It's a cool ability, heals for a lot. I mean, like baseline, right, with no buffs, it heals more than Light's Embrace, right? We all understand that. But it has 1 more mana, which isn't a huge thing, but it has this longer cooldown, and you have like a 1 to 2 second cast animation that can be easily interrupted. That's fine. I really think the bigger heals should have that. In every single game, bigger heals have longer cast times. It makes sense. But what doesn't make sense to me fundamentally is that our best heal is not in the healing side, it's in the protector side. And our best heal is our quickest heal that has no cast time. I can hit 8 to 9k Light's Embraces. I cannot do that with Divine Embrace. Why is that? Because baseline, I can make Light's Embrace heal more than Divine Embrace no matter what, just in general. If I take Spirits United and I take Sacred Protection, this adds a 60% floor to Light's Embrace, making it a 140% weapon damage heal in general. Meaning it's already better than Divine Embrace. Now we start stacking, either 2 buffs from Orb or 2 buffs from Beacon, and then they're inside of Sacred Ground. That's when we're getting those 8 to 9k heals that just aren't possible with Divine Embrace. And this is possible with just putting 1 point into Light's Embrace. So what would I suggest maybe happen for Divine Embrace? Maybe you give this passive from Light's Embrace over here. It just makes more sense. But then we're going to have to actually make the protector side, and this is a whole other thing I'm going to talk about, a protector side, not a healer side. My best heal is on the protector side, and that doesn't make sense to me. So I would suggest maybe putting that passive onto Divine Embrace. I think that would just make the most sense. And then sure, we can still take this. And I think this is one of the coolest ability setups here is Shared Struggle and Rebound. I think there's a lot you can do with it, but it doesn't get used because we'd have to dump 4 points into it to even get a heal that would do that. But then the second thing is Light's Embrace. I put 1 point in and it's just 1,000 times better, right? I can pop off 1, 2, 3 Light's Embraces with cast times before I can even get 2 Divine Embraces off. That would even maybe apply, and then the healing this does just isn't even worth it. So I think there needs to be a change between Divine Embrace and Light's Embrace and really decide which is your healing and which is your protector, personally. Next, Splash of Light. Splash of Light is very good situationally, and a lot of people sleep on it. So situationally for like PVE and PvP, right? It can heal like up to 4k. But my thing is that it has almost 0 value in any PvP other than like a coordinated war where you are specifically only healing your group. That's it in PvP. In PvE, yeah, sure, you can do some things with it, but it's like, why would I take Splash of Light when I can take something like Orb or Beacon that will give me constant maintenance that I don't have to worry about and still play with a Void Gauntlet on and never have to swap off for? And maybe that's just my healing style, but I know other people do enjoy like Splash of Light. And my other thing is the passives that go into it. For each ally healed below 50%, you gain 5% of your max mana. Like, I guess that's kind of whatever for me. I don't really think that's worth going into. And Purify is the only one I would consider, but then it's 1 debuff. And how worth is that really? Like in PvP, you have like 8 debuffs on you, right? And then how does it prioritize which one gets taken off? And then PvE, like how many debuffs are there to take off? There really aren't any. And it just doesn't make sense to then put in any points into here, because then we would just lose more effective healing from other avenues. And it just, I don't know. Splash of Light, what I would suggest is take it and actually make it a splash. Either make it something like Orb, where we get a pretty big AoE, leave this bigger cooldown and let it heal a lot of people, or make it like a frontal cone, like some kind of breath that you splash onto people, so that we can actually use it in PvP. You know, it adds some skill gap. It's not just like an auto homing missile heal. It adds a little bit of a skill gap because you have to aim it. You have to know when to use it. Give it maybe like a 20-second cooldown, and give it some better passives. Maybe like switch Purify up here, and then do something about like a little additional healing, or maybe give it a small hot instead of this shared recovery personally. But I think Splash of Light needs to become more of a splash, become more effective, and be usable in more situations than just very, very situational PvP and in PvE only. Those are all my suggestions for the healing side, but I'd say my last thing is actually the ultimate. The only ultimate, in my opinion, that's worth taking is Divine Blessing. Over here, Magnify. If you heal a target with Light's Embrace, extend the duration of life staff buffs on that target by 2 seconds. That is not at all worth enough to dump all these points into Light's Embrace, especially Connection. I just think it's not very good. I don't think it's worth I'd rather just drink a mana pot at that point. And to get Magnify, to get 2 more seconds on everything, I don't think that's enough to warrant ever taking it. I know there are some people that would take it, but I think it's somewhat of a throw if you don't take this 30% additional healing when somebody's below 50% health. Because why? It just makes this heal harder that already heals really hard. It makes this heal harder. It makes whatever other abilities you have heal harder. And so yes, it should be on the healing side, but I think there needs to be rework done on the protector side in general, like a complete rework, because this ultimate is just not worth it by any means. It does not make sense. And we are always forced now into this cookie cutter Divine Blessing setup. So where would I say we could actually use some work on protector? I think make it more protector. I think what would be interesting is if we started adding like a bubble or an absorption mechanic, right? Maybe make it so the ultimate is, you know, percentage of healing gives a small bubble, right? It actually protects people. Or maybe there's something else that's fortify related. But right now, as is, what we have on the protector side is one thing that gives fortify and actually protects, doesn't do a ton of healing, but protects. And then you have beacon, which actually just pumps a ton of healing. And I guess you can say like, oh, that protects people, but it doesn't really fit like the protector mantra. And then your biggest heal in the game. That's pretty much it on the protector side of things. And then you have a pretty bad ultimate that I think just needs some reworking. So in general, what I would like to see is more of a healing emphasis on the healing side and more of a protector side on the protector side with the abilities, right? Give them more fortify. Maybe introduce that kind of bubble mechanic or some kind of absorption. But in general, this needs to go, or it needs to be a little bit longer or something. And we need to change this passive on Light's Embrace if you want it to be a protector ability and not a healing ability. Like maybe, you know, make it per buff, give a 5% absorption bubble or a 10% absorption bubble, something, you know, something like that based on weapon damage skill and with focus, of course, but something needs to be done. And then as far as the passives go on this side, I have never taken Defensive Light. No healer blocks. If you block, you're just going to get stand broken, and gaining 5% mana is not enough to warrant a block. Balance, when you get hit below 50% health, gain 10% haste for 5 seconds, 20-second cooldown. That is not worth at all. 10% haste is like, you know, me going from a walk to a slightly faster speed walk. It's not enough to get away. It's not enough to be worth it. And a 20-second cooldown on that is not worth the point. Last one, glowing focus needs a change in the sense of, I don't know how many of you know this, but it doesn't apply to Beacon Sacred Ground. It gives you a little bit longer of a bend light and it improves the fortify on Orb of Protection. Glowing focus is kind of broken. Like, at least tell us what it applies to would be nice. Or just maybe get rid of it, because right now, as is, I can get this 15-second beacon. And if I take glowing focus and combo it with the 200 focus ability, it's going to tell me I have a longer beacon. But it's still not longer and it goes away at 15 seconds. So that still hasn't been fixed. But I think glowing focus, can you please give us some direction onto what this all applies to? Because I think there's a lot of confusion in the healer community. There's a lot of confusion in the healer community saying like, okay, it applies to X, Y, and Z. And then other people are like, no, it doesn't. So I think that's one of my biggest things is when we're getting like, you know, healing effectiveness or we're getting increased durations, could you please just tell us what that applies to? Right? Healing effectiveness doesn't apply to everything. we need some more clarity, I think would be great when it comes to those kinds of buffs, that we know what you are all applying it to and what it's going to calculate for. Other than that, that's all I have to say about the trees. I know that was kind of a long, kind of a ranty little session, but I'm still loving where we're at. I just think in general, we just need some work giving us more options in the tree. Right now, this is default. This is what you're always going to do, and it needs work. All right, next, I want to talk about attributes a little bit, actually. So where are we at with attributes? I think they're in a decent spot for focus starting off, but on the back end, we're really lacking. So I think it's totally fine to go over 300 focus and still get good scaling. I just want to preface that. But first point, 10% mana regen. I mean, what does this actually do for us? If you think about it, we have a lot of ways to get like 100% or 50% or whatever, but 10% mana regen rate is really like a drop in the bucket. If you actually do some testing, it does almost nothing. But again, it's only a 50 point. I just don't think it has as much value as like 10% more damage, or 5% chance to crit, or 5% damage to white, or 5% damage to light attacks, or even this all health consumables are 20% stronger. I think the very first point is somewhat worthless in comparison to every other attribute. And so I think this either needs to get increased, and maybe it flips a little bit with this one, and I'll talk about that later. Not 200%, but maybe 50. Something more than 10%, or maybe even give us, healing effectiveness, which we do see, but I just don't see any value in 10% mana regen rate personally. Next, 20 mana pool. I like this one. This is a good one. No issues here. Third one, 20% healing output. Maybe this is why they have it as 20%. Like, then it kind of competes with some of these. But in general, like, even then, let's keep going. They get crit hit damage, thrust damage, damage on heavy attacks, stamina damage, dodges cost less damage. That'd be nice. 15% elemental damage. I think then still comparatively between our first and third points, which are mainly our damage modifiers, I think that 10% mana regen rate is just, again, it is not worth it. This one. So I think this is a good one, but please tell us what this applies to. So again, I will bring up the beacon thing. If I use beacon, it says it has like 18 seconds right now. It still goes away at 15. So we need a fix there. Tell us what kind of casted buffs. What does casted buffs mean? I think there's just a lot of ambiguity pertaining to durations, buffs, healing increases, and some more clarity would be fantastic. I think in a nutshell, this one's really good, but I would like to know what it all applies to. Because if it's not applying to beacon, not applying to sacred ground, it's not really doing anything. So again, then we maybe need some work, like maybe on the first point, the fourth point. We'll see. Fifth point, 30 mana on any self or group kill. I like this one. This one's fantastic. Great for group play. I have no complaints there. But my biggest thing in all of attributes is this one. When your mana hits 0, gain 200% mana regen for 10 seconds, 60-second cooldown. All right, couple things. When mana hits 0, I have never, in all of my New World play, ever hit 0 mana. Ever. There's no way, as you get more mana, you get some different modifiers. There's no way to push to exact 0, meaning I have never actually seen this proc. So if they would change it maybe to when you go below 25% mana, when you go below maybe even 10, but I don't even think we get that low, but not hit 0. I think whoever designed this one, maybe not been a healer when they were doing some testing, but as a healer, there's no way to get to perfect 0, meaning we never get this to actually work. So when you look at the other trees, right, like, okay, plus 20 duration of stuns, slows, and root spells, that's actually pretty good. 10% damage on first hit of full health target, that can be good situationally. Guaranteed critical hit after a dodge, and then the grit one. We do not get a 300, essentially. Our 300 bubble is non-existent. So either give us something new or change the amount of mana that it needs to hit. I'd like to see under like 25%. And I think that's fine then, and I think that's fair for a 60-second cooldown, personally, but not 0 mana. Either change it or please make it like a percentage of mana. Those are my thoughts on the attributes. I think our first one, maybe our fourth one, and then our last one definitely needs some work. All right, so like any of my other videos, let's go into gearing actually. So I think we're good right now with the medium and light difference. I do notice a significant difference between playing in medium and light armor. But some things I'd like to see actually are, one, when we're getting like healing effectiveness or healing power or anything from our tree, I'd actually like to see some kind of stat for it, right? Maybe down in our stat sheet that you can't see because I'm covering it, but give us something that says like % healing power, right? When we have things like blessed, we have different procs. We have different things in the life staff tree. It'd be really nice to actually see that value somewhere and see how it's being calculated and see if there's actually a cap. Because again, in the healer community, there's a lot of discussion on, is there a cap? Is there not a cap? So that's just something else I'd like to see. But as far as gearing really goes, I think my gripe isn't with, loadouts or like percentage healing even. We have a lot of healing modifiers. I think it's with the perks. Now, first one, everybody knows this, and I did some testing. I think I just did some bad testing. It didn't work out, but I have a lot of gear on me because, again, I was doing all that testing, but let's find these. I have boots that give Mending Protection. Mending Protection increases healing power by 36% for 5 seconds if orb heals somebody below 50% health. This has not worked since launch, and it still does not work. If, I don't know if there's an issue with it. I know it's been reported, it's known, but right now the healer role has a perk that just simply does not work with a pretty key ability that a lot of people are using, meaning we are just getting next to no value out of it. Maybe instead, to make it a little bit easier, maybe just increase the healing power by 10% or something of orb protection, right? Do something with it that would work, but it would be nice just to see that work, I think. So again, that's more of like a bug fix of a known issue, but it would just be nice to see that actually function as such. I think otherwise where we're at is the rest of the perks I think are really good, right? Fortifying Sacred Ground, Accelerating Light's Embrace is nice. Revitalizing Beacon's nice. Even the Splash and Divine Embrace ones are pretty good. It's just Splash and Divine Embrace aren't getting used. So that's unfortunate. But where I really, really, really want to see a difference in perks is on the weapons. So right now with weapons, all of our off weapons, you don't get any healing benefit out of, which is fine, right? Like it's okay. But I guess what I'm saying is I would like to see more healing perks be added. And why is that? Because right now it's, if you have a life staff, get blessed. If you have a life staff, get blessed. If you have a life staff, get blessed. That's all. That's all there is. And there's nothing even close. Right now it is, if you don't have blessed, don't run it. It gives no diversity to life staff play. It's kind of just putting us into this cookie cutter, just get more healing power. And you can argue maybe as like any kind of damage class you want, Keen Vicious, right? You want Keenly Empowered, you want, Rogue, you want whatever. But at least for all of the damage dealers, there's options, right? There's tons of options. For healers, there's essentially only one. And then you can argue like, Keen Speed or Keenly Fortified and like Refreshing Move. Right now, I will tell you, if you have Blessed Refreshing Move, that's the best you can possibly get and get the most out of your life staff. The other ones don't really do anything. These are the only two that really modify your healing play. And that's a little unfortunate. So I guess what I'm asking is, there's a couple things, and this is going to kind of segue into a new topic, but either add more healing perks, and we don't have to add them to gear. It doesn't have to be for the actual abilities. I'm saying on the weapons alone. Give me something where I get on crit, and I guess this is going to segue into the other thing, but on crit, we get healing bonuses. When you crit, this happens. When you remove a debuff, this happens. Give us some other stuff so that we aren't just forced into a Blessed Refreshing Move meta always. Like there's been nothing else, right? We're getting new damage perks like through the thwarting things, but that stuff doesn't apply to me, right? And everything else just applies to damage. And so this is where I'm going to segue is I think if they would like to, and if they add new perks, they could remove Blessed conditionally on the fact that if they added in healing crits, I think healing crits would be fantastic for the game. I think then it would kind of force us out of this blessed meta if they were to remove blessed. But I think give us something else so that crit and crit damage can apply to our heals. And then I think it's okay to remove blessed so that we can go and pursue more options of healing. So I think crits could be a really nice fundamental gameplay change that all healers would enjoy. Every single MMO ever has had critical healing. I'm kind of confused why it's not in this game. And it would give us more options to pursue on our life staff and pursue on our gear. Like maybe I'd go for a crit ring instead of, a sacred ring. But sacred, that's very good, right? We're still talking about just getting into this outgoing healing meta. But if they added in something like critical healing, I think it would give them more options as far as attributes, as far as the life staff tree to maybe put in some new passives, do some more reworking. And I think it would allow us to get rid of blessed in the game so that we could do more with the life staff. So I don't want to say like I hate blessed. Blessed is very, very good. But I think it's just not great for gameplay when it's like, okay, you have one option. And even if I would be taking like a green over like a 550, like a green 500 with blessed, over a 550 in some points, right? It's very dependent on like weapon damage and things like that. But typically I will be running anything with blessed, like it's just better. It makes it so much better. And so a lot of the time it's, why would you even consider taking something else? So in summation, more healing perks for the weapons that give us more diversity, potentially removing blessed from the game, but conditionally on the fact that critical healing is introduced, right? And I think it might also be better than too if we were talking about like the protector tree, starting to put in some kind of absorption stuff, right? That'd be great. So critical heals would be fantastic in my opinion. Now, where my last thing resides is in the settings. So I think in general, we have keybinds for some life staff stuff, right? We can exit auto target cycle. You can actually change the key to do your cycling. Healing targeting is an issue in New World, right? And we do have some gameplay settings to adjust, you know, do we have targeted healing on? What does this all mean? What does this all do? But I do not think that gives it enough to warrant it being in a good spot. Right now, it is very clunky for me to go and heal anybody and start cycling through with a mouse wheel. And then again, it's only jumping between, not in order on the party frame, but just randomly to whoever's closest. It doesn't function well. It's not inviting, and it's somewhat intimidating for anybody starting to heal, especially if we're out in wars and I have, you know, group mode off. Like I always heal. If I'm scroll wheeling through everybody, it is very, very clunky to try and get to the right person that I want to heal. So what are some things I would like to see with heal targeting that might make it a little bit better? First thing starts with keybinds. One, I'd like to see keybinds, and yes, we can change these. So if you don't want to use scroll wheel, but it's still going to be the same, okay, then I have to hit like, you know, my Q key 800 times. It's not cycling between the right person. I'd like to see party frame binds. So for, you know, party slot 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and, you know, wherever you are, and you can reorganize those party frames. That'd be nice. But I can hold a modifier. For instance, I could hit 1 and then hit like E for my Light's Embrace heal, or, you know, whatever's comfiest to you. And that might not be the best way to do it, but at least it's a start. Or maybe it's something like, you know, you hold control or shift and it allows you to have your mouse out, and then you can click on the person you'd like to target and your party frames. I think that'd be an even better solution, is a modifier that allows us to now select the target from the party frame that we wish to heal. So that gives us more control and it's less random and less clunky. So either one, individual modifiers for each party slot, or two, some kind of enabler, some kind of key that I can hit that then brings out my mouse. I can still run around and do everything, but I can click on a target frame really fast and then hit my heal. Something like that I think would be fantastic. And on the topic of party frames, what else I would like to see is if we could actually move the party frames. So I can put them in the middle of my screen instead of being in the top left corner. I don't have anybody in my party, but in the top left corner like they normally are. It makes it very difficult to see health bars, and in every other game in the world, we've been able to move our party frames. And so I think that'd be fantastic. So some kind of modifier to let us heal specific members of the group, moving our party frames, allowing us to change the order of party frames. And then I think another thing pertaining to party frames is give us a keybind so that we can enable and disable group healing, right? Normally in my settings, I'm playing with group healing off so that I can aim at people in PvP, heal them. But there's sometimes where I want to specifically target a member in my group who's also fighting, but then I have to try and find them. I can see that their health's getting low. Let me hit a button that enables group mode healing, right? Whether it's, you know, just a keybind that we can do or it's something default, but let me choose what that is so that I can then in a swap really fast heal somebody who's right next to me, hit group mode healing on, see that my teammate's low, and then throw a heal at them. I think that's something a lot of people are asking for and a lot of people would love. Now, my last two things pertain to just general settings for targeted healing. One, I think, let's say, is there somebody around here? Yeah, there's some people over here. So with targeted healing right now, I can go like this and it targets them, right? But in general, if there's a bunch of people stacked up, I don't know who I'm going to heal. Typically, what I've learned is it works best when you're aiming at a nameplate. So that's what I tend to do. But is that the best solution for it? Not necessarily. I think it's too random, it's too confusing, and it typically will just target whoever's closest to you. So the first thing I would suggest is putting in a gameplay setting that disables closest member healing and emphasizes targeted healing. So that when I'm targeting somebody, there's a stack of people and I'm aimed at them, it doesn't always just target whoever's closest to me, right? It will specifically lock onto that target. And I think that would be great and it'd be a nice setting. Sure, maybe some people want the closest member, so leave that as an option that you can enable and disable. But I think that would make it a little bit more fluid. My second thing is, when we're using targeted healing, give us a white outline around people so that I know who my target is before I hit my heal. So I'm not in this clunky, like standing like this Statue of Liberty in an OPR or in PvP ready to just get smacked because I'm trying to figure out who I'm casting a heal on and I can't move. So give us a white outline for who is currently targeted, because clearly there's something in the game that's showing, okay, this person's targeted, this person is targeted. Give us something that actually shows us that, so that we know, okay, before I'm going to hit this and potentially die because I'm not targeting the right person, now I have to flip through with my scroll wheel. Let us see who is targeted on the front end as opposed to the back end. Those would be my last two suggestions for targeted healing in general. The last thing I'd say, as far as like another setting, and this pertains to group mode, is let us have an option so that we can scroll through in order in party mode. Right now, if you scroll through and you have a party 5, it's going to go like first person, last person, third person, second, fourth. It's not in order. And I think give us an option that allows us to scroll our heal target in order. And it would make it a little bit more fluid in group mode healing. But in general, I would say my issues with targeted healing and just the way healing works are, one, the scroll wheel mechanic, right? It's really bouncy, really random, not very intuitive. Let us move the party frames. Give us a way to automatically target people in our group that we can maybe hit a shift modifier and click on people. 4, give us better targeted healing so that we know before on the front end who we are targeting, not just random people and then, just praying that it's going to hit them. 5, just more settings to make it more fluid, right? Disabling closest member healing and really enabling that targeted healing. Giving us a scroll for party frames, just stuff of that nature. And I think that would make healing much, much, much better. All right, so I know that was a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things to cover, but I think there's so much we can do to just make it a better experience for healing in New World in general. I want to hear what else you have to say. I think that's the most valuable thing in this, is I want your feedback as well. So let me hear, what kinds of things would you like to see change for the future of healing in New World? I'd absolutely love it, and I'll get back to you in the comments section. If you want to connect with me as well, feel free to join the Discord, DM me about whatever you want to do. Follow the TikTok, follow our Twitter, and get involved in our giveaway. Follow me on Twitch and catch me live here today. And then if you want to support me directly, feel free to hit up my Patreon. So thank you to everybody who supports me there. Thank you, Jacob, Adrian, Thuggies, Shane, Gil, Schmeezy, Anarino, Ajiro, Nathaniel, Thonar, Nicasio, Joseph, Tarvi, Mummy, Generic Guy, Ronan, Ralph, Bob, Florian, Blue Beagle, GDB, Jay Kitchens, Wentz, Dexter, Rich, Rob, Matthew, Josh, Michelle, Nate, and Rich. Thank you all for your support, but thank you every single one of you just for watching. As always, please do that weird YouTube stuff, like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell. I'd really appreciate it. But again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And thank you all for being you.